Wet.
Hi everyone, today we're doing another R.E.P.O monster video, and the monster we'll be drawing is the animal. This guy is definitely one of the weirder enemies in the game. In my opinion, only the clown is weirder than him. The animal has 6 human legs, and he walks hunched down on all 6. His face is vaguely humanoid, but he lacks ears, hair, and teeth. His eyes are inky black orbs set in puffy sockets, and his nose is rather short and nubby, almost getting lost beside the more prominent details of his large eyes and gaping mouth. Despite how visually creepy he is, he's actually relatively harmless when compared to the other monsters in the game, like the hunter or the cloak.
Drag her into the hole. Oh, it fell into me! Everything's focused.
Which can both kill players in 1 or 2 hits depending on player health. The animal, however, attacks by simply flailing around with his legs, jumping and tumbling in a haphazard manner. These kicks will knock the player down, but the worst thing about it is that any valuables nearby will be damaged if not broken during the onslaught. With how much he jumps around during the attack, he can even destroy stuff from inside your cart, like the gnomes do. There have been a couple runs where I didn't make enough money to extract because he smashed everything I collected before I could get the cart away from him. Despite all that, I honestly find the animal more sad than annoying or creepy. With the way he flails around when agitated, you get a sense of fear or confusion from him, which is understandable given the whole 6 human feet and no arms situation. I could be reading into it, but he seems just as scared as we are. I'm not sure if he's supposed to be a mutated human, like an experiment of some kind, or if he's supposed to be a separate creature altogether that just happens to look like a human. Since the players are all robots, and most of the enemies, except the hunter, are non-human, maybe humans have all been warped into creatures like the animal in some sort of apocalypse scenario. That's not something that's hinted at in-game as far as I can tell, just a little headcanon I was thinking about while drawing, so don't take that as a serious or credible theory. When I first saw him, I was on the mechanics station level, which is visually based on the movie The Thing, and has a lot of references to it throughout the level, so I expected him to start growing blades or claws and start eating everyone, but after the initial jump scare, he just kind of ran off into the darkness. For my interpretation, I'm going to make him just a little bit more intimidating, while still trying to stay loyal to the original design for the most part, so I'm making his legs a little bit thicker and adding some muscle and a more visible spine along his back. I also gave his face a little bit more expression as well, falling somewhere between rage and confusion, and I'm imagining a blood-curdling scream coming out of his mouth. The old design definitely has the creepiness down, but I'm trying to add a little bit of extra menacing, make him look more threatening, without going too far and changing his design entirely. I'm also exaggerating the skin folds and wrinkles just to get that extra little bit of gross factor in there, which I also could have achieved by making him overly smooth, but I wanted to avoid making him look too waxy. And now I'm going through and closing off all my lines while at the same time adding extra detail. This is a good example of a time where I think cross-hatching works really well with full color, because we're trying to pack as much detail as we can in there, because there's no clothes or hair to hold all that detail. It would be really easy to make him too boring and flat. So we'll be using a mix of smooth shading with the color, cross-hatching with the black lines, and then also a variation of skin tones to keep the whole thing visually interesting, which could be done by putting him in a crazy pose or having him in a really complex background, but I wanted the camera to be down on his level, like we were hiding under a table from him. And now that the line work's all finished up, we can get started on the color. So first we need to fill in our base skin color. And like I said before, with the majority of the figure just being bare skin, we'll have to do a bit more work with the tones to keep it interesting. First I'm going to get the color on his mouth done, and for that I'm just going to go for a dark maroon, which I'm going to have get progressively darker as we go deeper into his mouth to really add depth in there, and I'll accentuate that by adding highlights on the ridges. And after I got the shading finished up on his mouth, I decided that I wanted the flesh to be more red, so after merging all the layers together, I used the hue and saturation adjustment tool to bring up the saturation and switch the brown to more of a red, just to make the interior look more fleshy. Now that we have the mouth done, I'll go in with a red tone and airbrush some around the joints, toes, heels, eyes, mouth, nose, and spine, basically anywhere that the skin bunches up. I'll do a similar thing with other drawings as well, but I usually drop the opacity way down afterwards because I'm just looking for a tint. Now I'll switch that to a purple and hit his eye sockets and sprinkle some veins in there, and then use the same purple to add some bruises to his extremities, since the only weapon he has is his bare feet and knees, and most of the things he'll be smashing into are metal or stone. After that, I'm just going to use the spray paint brush and add some low saturation, low opacity blue to add in some speckles and blemishes to his skin to try and make it look a a bit more transparent. Next, I'll collapse all those layers down and add a new layer, and I'll grab a paler skin tone and brush his underside with it, making his chest, belly, and legs look like they've never gotten direct exposure to light since he crawls around on all fours, or technically all six. And now we'll start with our shading, and like usual, I'm starting off with a black layer that I'll use to get the majority of the shading on, dropping the opacity so that it ends up as more of a gray. And I was always taught growing up, never shade with black, and I understand why, but I honestly disagree with any hard rules like that when it comes to art, because if you think hard enough about it, you can come up with an exception to any of those rules. And I'm not saying not to learn from other people or not to take advice from other artists, but I feel like it's way more important for you to be true to your style and do what's right for the piece that you're doing. But yeah, definitely learn the basics and take tips from other people, but feel free to break and bend the rules as needed to fit your style. Ignore anatomy, shade with black, do whatever you want. In the end, you're the one with the pencil. If you're happy with it, that's the important thing. Now, obviously, that changes a little if you're doing your work professionally, like for a commission or if you get a job as an illustrator. You may have to change some things to fit what they want, but even then, they should be hiring you because they like your style and they like the way you do things. Anyways, I went off on a bit of a tangent there. Back to the drawing at hand. Now I'm going to add some lighting effects with a light skin tone using an airbrush just to make the lighting that much smoother along the top. I really like using the airbrush tool. It's so much easier to really sculpt the skin texture into the drawing and allows you to get a feel for the bulges and curves of your figure, like with muscles or facial details like cheekbones. Now that I'm done with the skin lighting, I'm going to go back in and add some extra shading on the underside of the figure, along the face, and all the other spots that just need to be a little bit darker. And lastly, I'm going to add some shine to his eyes and add a little bit of drool in his mouth, and then we'll be ready to reveal the final product. Alright, here it is, the animal from R.E.P.O. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and leave me a like to let me know. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And as always, feel free to leave me a comment below if you have a suggestion for another video or even just to say hi. I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks again. Have a good one.
Oh my gosh.
Jesus wept.